Now with geothermal, we're talking about subterranean heat under the earth. Isn't that so?
Subterranean.
Subterranean. The heat from the earth.
Yes.
I want to ask you, what are the different types of geothermal plants?
Okay.
But is geothermal affected, for example, if we have a volcanic eruption, or if we have an earthquake?
Any problem?
I will reply with in a very simple way and very pragmatic way. Okay. First, before replying to this question, if you don't mind, I'd like to straight one thing right.
Sure.
You were talking where in the OECS you have geothermal. I would say Guadeloupe is in the process of becoming a member of OECS in a few weeks, months, whatever. So
yes, you're an associate member now, are you?
As of today, yes.
Yes.
Okay. And it's in the process of accessing another level of membership. But basically, as Minister mentioned, geothermal exists in the Caribbean for more than 30 years. It's in operation for more than 30 years. And there have been eruption, earthquake, and many things over the last 30 years, and it's still up and running.
Okay.
So it's a way to reply to your question. Also, when you speak about earthquake, you remember we were talking about naturally fractured reservoir. Every time you have another earthquake, you have more fracture, so it means that you have more permeability, and it's good for geothermal. So you don't have, you know, when you speak about shale gas in some northern American countries with a lot of pollution and everything, you need to do some fracking to create the fracture. Here we are blessed with naturally fractured reservoir, so earthquake is not a problem. Earthquake is an advantage. Okay. So geothermal is a way to use what Mother Nature is giving us and to use it the good way. So I'm saying this just to take the time to make people understand that geothermal is friendly.
Yes.
Geothermal is not risky. An investment is risky financially because you may have to drill a well not at the right place, and you may have to drill another well, so you have a financial initial risk. But geothermal, as it is, the operation is not a risky business. It's an industrial activities. Okay. And the other point I would like to emphasize is the base load. As Devon mentioned, geothermal is base load, meaning it's available 98% of the time of the year, so 8,600 hours per year, geothermal is available. And so if you compare geothermal to other renewable energy, like wind, like solar, even hydro, hydro energy, 3 to 5 months per year, due to the dry season, you have a drop in the productivity of the hydro energy, sometimes like 40% drop. Okay? So it may become tricky, but the only one renewable baseload energy that exists is geothermal. Okay? So all this is important.
So there are different plants, types of geothermal plants,
yes,
using different types of technologies.
Yes. So the different type of geothermal is basically based on temperature. You have what we call low enthalpy or low temperature, which is below 90 degrees. This is for district heating or other use, as we mentioned, like agriculture and that type of things. Then you have the range between 90 degrees and 150 degrees, which is medium enthalpy or medium temperature. This allows you to produce electricity at, I will say, a higher cost, because you have to use what we call an ORC, which is an organic ranking cycle. Basically, you use the natural heat of the earth to heat a gas that will produce in return, this gas will be used to make action in the turbine to produce electricity. So it's a combined cycle, okay, and it's a little bit different. And then above 150 degrees up to whatever, some places in the world up to 350 degrees Celsius. Okay? You have what we call the direct flash, which is where you separate the steam from the water, and the steam is being sent directly into the turbine to make it happen. And in other places, you have a combination of those two. You have direct flash to use the first, let's say, the initial heat or the initial energy in the geothermal fluid.
So it's dry steam?
Well, you separate the water from the steam, and then the dry steam is being sent into the turbine.
Yeah.
And then after, you take the steam out of the turbine, and you use it again for an ORC, a secondary flash, because you still have energy into this steam. You cannot use it directly to make a turbine turn, but you can use it with an organic ranking cycle to produce again some energy, and then to produce electricity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And then after only, you send this water back into the reservoir. Okay? So there's no one geothermal. There's many different, let's say 3 main different applications that you can combine depending on the use or depending on what you need, depending where you are in the world. And I will say also, to make a very simple difference, there is some places where you have only dry steam. See, it means that it's what we call steam dominated. You don't have any water. It's just steam that is coming out of the ground, like in Iceland, for example, or other places, in the United States sometimes. But here in the Caribbean, we have what we call water-dominated steam. You have about 80% of water and 20% of steam. So that's why you have to separate the water from the steam when it comes at the surface. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'd like to mention also another point, if I may. Here,
you may.
As well. You asked the minister about the fact that over many years there has been changes and what may happen in the future. The combination or the scheme or the arrangement we made for St. Kitts is pretty much unique in the Caribbean. It's a private-public partnership, 50-50% between the government of St. Kitts and Trinidad, through SCELEC for the government of St. Kitts. This basically, it's not 100% public or private like everywhere else in the Caribbean, except St. Vincent, that is also following the public-private partnership scheme. So it's different. It's not like a private investor that can go away or the government that can change. We are married.
Oh.
So for the worst and for the best. So at the end of the day, we have to find solution when there's problem.
Yes.
But we are just married.
So there will be no divorce.
Well, divorce is a very difficult option, and it may be sometimes. So usually we'll do all our best efforts to make it happen and to find solution. But this is the main idea, and this is why we can move that quickly. We started exploration in September 2015, and by September 2016, as the minister explained, we will disclose all the results of the feasibility studies, target identification, and the program for the drilling in 2017.
Yes. Now, Dr. Gardner, you were speaking somewhat to the economical benefits or whatever geothermal energy development. I think I heard you say the exploration phase of it is the most expensive. In terms of the power generation, is it low operating costs? Maybe you can speak to that. You're a physicist.
Yeah. So it's not as it's not really that the cost of exploration is cheaper than the cost of building the plant. The issue is it is more risky than the cost of building a plant, because when you're drilling the exploratory wells, a typical exploratory well could run you $3 million, $3 to $6 million, if you're not careful, and you do not know what you're going to find at the end of the tunnel. And even after you have drilled the exploratory well, you will have to drill what is called a production well. Right. And a production well could run you $10 million. So you could really invest up to $15 million and not really get to a stage where you have the quality geothermal reservoirs to run a power plant. That's the point. So so there's a risk that you could spend $15 million and come up with nothing. Once you have got to the stage where you have identified the resource through to the production stage, building the plant is easy. It's like buying a diesel generator. It's really just to put a generator on top of the resource and really capture the steam and use it to operate your turbines. bottom line is in all thermodynamic, what they refer to as thermal electricity generation processes, what you're really using is a gas to run a turbine, and this is no different once you have ensured that your gas is of the quality that can run the turbine that you desire.
Jacques, I'm back to you again.
My pleasure is for it.
Now you have a geothermal, a working plant in Guadeloupe. It's the Buoyant. How do you pronounce that?
Bouillante.
Geothermal plant and so on. Now, over the years, what have been some of the noticeable benefits that you have seen to the people of Guadeloupe because of this plant? Have they felt it in their pockets, health-wise?
Okay. Guadeloupe is a very specific case. Let me explain you how this geothermal power plant was created, what was the origin. Back in the 70s, EDF, the French National Electrical Company, was looking on how to test future control command equipment for nuclear power plants, civil nuclear power plants. And the beauty of geothermal is that you recreate the same condition of temperature and pressure, but without any nuclear risk. So they built Géothermie Bouillante 1 back in the end of the 70s, okay, to test those equipment. So it was not meant initially, but it was not built to produce electricity for the grid. It was meant as a research equipment. Okay. Then, after a few years, everybody realized that it can produce electricity, and then they start connecting it to the grid and say, well, let's build another one, because it was a small one. It was a 4.5 megawatts, the first one, and they went into building Géothermie Bouillante 2, which is an additional 11 megawatts. Okay, and this was in the end of the 80s. But you have to remember, or you have to consider that in Guadeloupe, thanks to the French government, we have huge electrical production capacity, fossil fuel. Okay? So there was no need for geothermal energy at that time. Okay, there was no need. I'm taking words because the fuel costs were low and the production tools were there, so it was not a real concern. We're talking 30 years ago. So now things have changed. There is a climate initiative. There is everybody understands that renewable is very important, and so there has been a huge development of solar, wind, microhydro, and geothermal. And now they are really a new move for the last 6 years approximately to develop geothermal energy up to its maximum extent in Guadeloupe. So let's say that if tomorrow we can qualify 100 megawatts on Guadeloupe, we will develop 100 megawatts of geothermal. Okay. Even though we have already fossil fuel generation capacity, even brand new, because just last year we have commissioned a 200 megawatt fossil fuel plant, but this is due to security, because at the end of the day, when you are in Guadeloupe, even if there is a hurricane or earthquake or whatever, you have electricity available.
You have a backup.
We have huge backups. Okay, so the idea is that over the next few years, some these fossil fuel engine will be shut down to allow renewable energy to produce its full effects. Okay, so the situation is a little bit different, and that's why considerations are not the same. Okay, with the peak consumption in Guadeloupe is about 250, 270 megawatt. We have 450 megawatt installed capacity. Okay. So that's why it hasn't been developed as it was not critical as it may be on other islands.
I see.
Okay, but now the change is completely different. The move is completely different, and Géothermie Bouillante will be developed with a Géothermie Bouillante 3, probably up to 40, 45 megawatt. And there is another exploration that has started 2 years ago, just below Bouillante, around Vieux Habitants, which is the city below Bouillante, still south of Bastère Island, and we expect to develop something between 20 and 40 megawatt also. Okay. So this is the reality, and geothermal is really becoming something very important. It will allow Guadeloupe to reach 50% renewable energy within the next 5 to 10 years.
So Guadeloupe is leading the OECS. in geothermal energy? They are the example to which we should emulate.
Well, let's say that we have 30 years of track record and experience, so we know what to do and how to do it well, and we are the only geothermal power plant within this island seismic volcanic context, 8,000 kilometers from any industrial center, so we know what it is, and we have this experience. So this is why we may be able to develop more quickly a new geothermal power plant, because we have this experience. So yes, it's true that there is a huge expertise, and you have, I guess you know that the exploration on Dominica started with people from Guadeloupe.
Okay.
So yes, it's a good move.
Yes. Now, esteemed gentlemen and lady, we soon have to go to the phone lines, but I want to ask the minister, Patches, one question. You have spoken about waste to energy. Do you think that St. Kitts generates enough waste to have that sort of renewable energy?
Well, we've had 2 unsolicited proposals, and they were of the view that you had enough. I don't remember the figures in terms of what is required in terms of the garbage to generate that really economically feasible amount of that energy. But yes, in a nutshell, would be the answer, because we have something before us right now. Matter of fact, this company was speaking with the solid waste management company there, and they were of the view that we generate enough waste here. Matter of fact, they are about to start one in Nevis. I would believe the smaller population over there to generate this waste. So
okay, so it's a way in terms of waste management.
Yes, but we have to. The thing about going forward is that we have to finalize what I would call a renewable energy roadmap to determine, which renewables we will have, as a part of the mix. We have to consider issues like geothermal. Jack mentioned, I think, was 25 megawatts, right? I mean, when you put base load of 25 megawatts, then what happens to your fossil fuel generation capacity? These are things we have to iron out, and it relates not just to geothermal, but all the other intermittent resources as well.
Very good. You wanted to say something, Dr. Gardner?
Well, yeah.
In terms
of waste to energy, I just wanted to add one thing to what the minister said. Very good example that he has raised with Nevis and the size. The issue of technology is one which is very important when we talk about waste to energy. So when one speaks about the amount of waste that is required, it is very technology specific. It's similar to a car or a bus or something, So there are different car sizes that requires different number of people. So if you're looking at waste to energy, you have waste to energy technologies that can operate on a farm, and requires only the waste from that specific farm to operate. So we have to be careful when we talk about how much waste is required for a waste energy project to be successful. The technology must match what the system needs are, rather than us trying to take the system and fit it into what the technology requires. So that is a mistake we frequently make. We identify the technology, then we say, okay, this technology needs this amount of waste for it to operate, and we try to find that waste for the technology. That's the wrong approach. The approach is, what is it that we have, and what are our needs, and then we identify an appropriate technology match, because the technology barriers are not too difficult. In fact, we don't have many technology barriers. It's really for us to agree on what it is that we want, and then we identify the technology that is suitable for what it is that we want.
Sure. Okay, we have to go to the phone lines. Of course, this program is about the people. Of course, people is at the center of any economic, sustainable, and human development. People must be at the center, and so we'll go to the phone lines, and we are going to welcome the calls from our listeners. Working for you, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon. Question. Suppose you purchase $1 million generator to use dry steam, and you know, after a while you find out there's no more dry steam. What happens to that turbine? Is there any plan in place to use the heat exchanger and use that same turbine?
Well, if I understand well the question was, I'm sorry.
You go and you test the production well, and you have dry steam. So you now purchase $1 million generator, or turbine, I must say, to use dry steam.
Okay.
And later down the road, you find out that there's no more dry steam, so to speak. You have a lot of water. You have 60 or 80% water. And you now would have to use, say, a heat exchanger now, using either pentane or either butane mixtures or whatever.
Okay.
So can you still use that $1 million turbine that you purchased for dry steam?
Okay, well, if I understand well the question, the fact is that here on St. Kitts, for example, you don't have any dry steam. You have water-dominated reservoir, water-dominated geothermal fluids, and the steam will come from the separation of the water and the steam from the geothermal fluids once it's arrived at the surface. And then after this separation, the water is being re-injected into the reservoir. So there's no question of there's no more dry steam.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Okay, bye.
Okay, there's no caller on the line. And Dr. Gardner, you were the last person carrying on the discussion.
Yes, so I was speaking a while ago about waste-to-energy technologies, and the same is true for pretty much all renewable energy technologies. I think sometimes we assume that all wind turbines are the same. We assume that all solar PV systems are the same. We assume that all geothermal systems are the same. That's not so. There are always going to be differences in technology design. There are differences sometimes in technology types.